stuff.
Do we know when the place was last occupied?
Well, the police reckon it would have been shut down about before 5 o'clock now. This area, only up the top is all these plastic cartons which have all done a bit of melting across knows what.
Fire is very destructive, but there is normally always something left to give you some indication of what had probably caused it. People tend to perhaps think to use fire as to hide up murders, crimes, whatever. But there's normally enough evidence for us to get some indication of the probable cause. And of course, forensically, there's a lot that can be found under the microscope that you couldn't see with the naked eye. So it's not true. We always find something that will indicate to us the source of ignition.
This is off the slicer. So this here, it's all melting up here off the slicer. There is one separate plug outside. It's come off something, but I don't know what at the moment. Yeah, we had to upload that. It's still in the melting stages.
What we've got here is evidently a sandwich sealing machine. You've got at one end of the unit, you've got the remains of a roll, oops, falling apart, the remains of a roll of plastic material, which is fed through a heated mechanism, like so, and it's got a guillotine apparatus of some description. I'm not familiar with this type of thing, but they're apparently quite common in sandwich bars and such like, where they have to wrap food clinically very, very quickly. What's happened is that this appears to have been at the centre of the fire and is in all probability the cause of the fire. We know it was plugged in and we know there was power to it. We know from the officer in charge that it was at the centre of the fire when he saw it.
Basically, if you look at this socket, right, you'll see that there's smoke staining all around here, but these are pretty clean, which means that it's been protected by a plug. Not particularly that plug, although we'll check it out. But once that fits on there, so that gives us an indication of what's plugged in. And further down there, you can see another socket that's been damaged as well.
Right, Mick?
Go on.
The hot plate is plugged into here.
That one.
Yep. All right?
Right.
She pulled both of the plugs out of there. Not that one there, because the freezer was basically in the way of that one.
So there was the freezer was most probably plugged into
and
there.
And also, obviously, imagine that microwave.
This,
is that microwave?
Yeah, which has hardly got. Which has hardly got anything in the way of a plug on it. Well, there's no cap on it. That's for sure.
There you go.
What we're concerned about here is this may well be a type of apparatus or equipment that's common to maybe thousands of cafes throughout the London area or Europe, the world, where there may be an inherent design fault. Or it may have been modified, you know, but I would expect this to have some sort of cutout and thermostatic control which would prevent this sort of thing happening. It seems to have been, in all probability, at first glance, some fault with the apparatus itself.
Just after midnight at a tower block in Kilburn, a fire in a flat has been burning for some time before it was discovered. John Neighbour arrives to investigate.
Maybe that she'd be on drugs. Apparently she's quite well known to the police.
Yeah.
She's down by the side of the bed. She looks maybe as if she's fallen asleep in the chair or gone unconscious, fallen over.
So it looks like an accidental as opposed to deliberate.
Yeah.
At the moment.
Yeah, at the moment, but we don't know what else is in there.
Okay.
It's just in the one room.
Contained to one room. A lot of fire damage. What kind of condition is she in?
She's not in too bad.
Apart from deceased, that is.
She's not in too bad a condition. She's not too badly burnt.
Okay.
Most of her clothing's been burnt off.
Yeah.
And the room's quite burnt out, and the fire burnt itself out when we got in there.
Okay. Who was first in there?
It was a crew from North Kensington.
Okay. Right. Okay. If you show us the way, please.
Yeah.
I'll take you in and give you a brief on what we believe. Okay.
Forensic scientists from the Metropolitan Police Fire Investigation Unit are also called to attend fires involving deaths, to discover how the victim died and investigate any suspicious circumstances. Together with the fire brigade, they may be asked to give evidence to the coroner's court.
The victim was found to the side of the bed in a curled up position with her head more or less inside the bedside cabinet. She was lightly burnt, so we've in fact removed the victim's body out of another room, so I can now go ahead and look at the area surrounding what appears to be the most damage in the bedroom, which is between the armchair and the bed, together with the wardrobe.
I would say that all fatalities move us in different ways, but you've got to learn to cope with them. The first one, or the first two, or the first three, tend to be rather traumatic, but the more you go to, then the easier it becomes. You don't actually become hardened, but I think you can deal with the after effects more easily.
Would it be possible to come in and see you later on if you're around?
Later on?
Well, I say in about half an hour, because I'm...
Yeah, I don't know what's the here standing watching you.
Okay. Look,
I said none of this business.
So,
My mum might see me in my nightie and she won't think it's very nice with all you men around.
the deceased was last seen at about 6:30 this evening. Didn't seem in a good mood, and the lady surmised she just had a bad day. But it obviously got a little bit worse, but she was last seen alive at 18:30. Perhaps by somebody else, but this lady saw her then. She evidently has a living boyfriend who works nights, and his place of work is unknown. With reference to the details here, there's one fairly young female who's been fairly badly burned. The source of ignition at the moment is unknown, but the reason for the fire's development is the combustion of polyurethane foam furniture, which has caused some severe fire damage both to the contents of the room and to the deceased. There is some evidence of drug taking in the form of a Ventolin inhaler with some aluminium foil made into a pipe dish in which are ashes consistent with crack. She was a working girl. She was also known to the police as being a drug dealer. The cause of death, according to the pathologist, was a cocktail of drugs. There was no soot in the airways of the deceased, indicating that she had in fact stopped breathing before the fire had started to develop. My own personal view was that she had knocked over a candle during the course of her falling into the position in which she was found.
Every year, 900 people lose their lives in fires, the large majority as a result of accidents.
Could you just take a couple of the main room as well?
Yeah.
3 hours into Red Watch's night shift, Steve Newman and Pete Banks are called to a squat in Hampstead.
Houses are just property. That's all they are. House burns down, it doesn't matter. I did 6 years in fire safety, and my concern then was to protect life. What happened to the house or the building, I didn't care about. It could burn down, it can be rebuilt. But you can't bring life back. There's no spread upstairs. You've got a slight fire spread up through that.
It's gone up through the window. Well, it's come up through the window as well.
They've cleared that.
But we've definitely got a seat of fire in this area. I haven't done a lot of clearing away. I was just going to come around and check the electrics because there's a lot of dodgy wiring.
Got a petrol can line outside.
Yeah, I've got contacts over there. Just a look.
Over where?
I haven't smelled petrol as I came through from over there, but...
We'll get a gas tech done on it then.
Yes, the back wasn't secure. The door was open. When a fire is set anyway, of course, materials are brought in, petrol, for example, and introduced into an area where you probably wouldn't expect to find petrol. And there's usually some residue left under floors, under carpets.
It's just a piece of material that might have had a significant smell about it, but what we're trying to do is actually track down if there's a trail of accelerant being laid. I mean, this might be a red herring. That contained an accelerant, probably petrol by the smell of it. But that would be for the lad to decide, you know, we just go by
sensors. It's like this piece of equipment here, it will test for an accelerant, it won't tell you exactly what it is. Yes, that's certainly
Off the range, both levels.
that's certainly accelerant there.
Sometimes you know that it's an arson. Sometimes you can even turn around and say, I know that bloke did it. We know he did. We can't prove it. But there again, you just pass it over to the police and you get on with the next one. If you keep dwelling on all those, you'll drive yourself nuts.
A bit further over. I came back in because I saw a PC come down the sideway, so I was going to confer with Steve and possibly pass it over to the police. Excuse me. It's all this smoke that's down your throat.
If we get a boarding up service in, if there's no, and we can seal it up and they can put a padlock on it and we'll take the padlock back to the neck.
Yeah, we're looking here as well. This might be another scene of fire, but we're taking the floorboards up to see whether it's maybe spreading on the joist from where it's gone through the ceiling in the other room.
Can you get hold of the night duty CID and tell them that the LFB say that this fire is at present being treated as suspicious of it?
The next morning, while police forensic scientists are still investigating the fire, the man who first discovered it turns up.
This was open. This settee here was ablaze about that high, all the way along it. There was a fire in that corner, ablaze, and one here that was going up over the back, gushed across here. I mean, but that was when I came back, probably, because at this point I just ran round the side there and started screaming at the houses, you know, fire brigade. And then came back. As soon as somebody shouted from across the road they're on their way, I came back. And there were bags of rubbish, sort of here and here, that were these people still only just moved in. I immediately threw those into the side there, look, to make a good entrance for the fire brigade to get in. It was then I discovered that blue gas bottle was down in the bushes there. Now that, when I left, had been over there.
Right in the sort of kitchen area?
Yeah. And this door was closed when I left. And that's how I left the place.
Right. Okay.
When I came back, this is how I found it.
Yeah. Thanks very much.
Okay, guys.
Cheerio.
Yeah.
Witnesses, if you'll excuse the pun, in the heat of the moment, can very often be confused about what they see. They're not trained observers, and a similar sort of thing happens with road accidents. People see something very fleetingly, run off to get the fire brigade in this instance, and not really recall exactly what they saw. It may well be that he's mistaken. But certainly there seems to be, I would say, a burning pattern here, which is consistent with a flammable liquid burning from floor level, which is not a surprise when you consider that we've got a container of liquid elsewhere in the premises. And even without the petrol container, I would say that in the half an hour he's been gone, you're going to have a fairly good fire going to cause this sort of damage. It's not consistent with a smouldering fire, obviously. No. And his observation that there were 3 areas burning, together with the petrol, obviously suggests that it was deliberate.
Despite confirming that it was arson, the police have no suspects. Of the 26,000 cases of arson recorded every year, less than 1 in 10 will result in a successful prosecution.